Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dalton. If you are new here, I hope you are all having a fantastic day. I know I am, because I get to talk about my first podium. So, this race is an interesting one. It's a small field. This is the Majestic Crit up in Ontario. Typically, this course is run the opposite direction. So everybody's kind of getting used to the right turns here. It's a little bit different for us. The course runs way differently, and in my opinion, it was a lot slower all day. I raced the forest before this. Had a pretty poor race overall. If you want to see that one, stay tuned. I'll upload the full race. There's really not much to break down besides my mid-pack-ish finish, like 16th, 17th place. But anyway, yeah, so this was a smaller field, full disclaimer. We had about 20 guys deep in this field. And small fields always create an interesting dynamic. As you can see, my teammates just kind of doing tempo on the front here, but with a small field like this and on the start list, sometimes there's like some sneaky Cat 5 dudes that you haven't seen on the start list before that will just basically show up and give you the business. So I was not gonna drag anybody that didn't seem like they wanted to work to the line. So my goal today was to animate this race. I was going to relentlessly attack the field as I do in bigger races, but it doesn't work because there's 80 guys willing to chase me. So yeah, in a smaller field of 20, I felt like it would probably pay off. The goal really was to ride a break of like 2 or 3 guys, but realistically, you know, it just depends. There needs to be a selection to be made here. At least that's what I was going for. So, as you can see, like I said, you know, my teammate's on the front here. He's just hanging out. He's doing really a tempo effort, nothing crazy. Super slow to start out the first couple laps. But what happens pretty quick is I'm going to go ahead and get started and start the party. So first things first for me, we've only jumped ahead like a straightaway here, but no sense in you watching that straightaway. But the big thing for me is I do want to throw some early attacks and see if anybody's willing to work. So the rider in front of me, he rides for Team 6. This is Rich. I knew that he was going to be pretty strong. He had some results in the Cat 4 races before. And I told him before the race, I was like, hey, you want to work? And so I wanted to see if I could draw, you know, maybe him and a couple other guys that were willing to basically ride a break. I want to see if I can draw him out of the pack. So first things first, I go ahead and throw an attack, and I'm like, right on. A couple guys came with me. If we can get into rotation, maybe we can get something started early. I don't necessarily want to ride the break the entire race, but, you know, my plan was just to see who wanted to come with and who wanted to do something. So the guys that respond, sure enough, spoiler alert, are going to be the guys that are there late race. So that was telling me something. I pull off, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to take the front. The whole field came, but it was drugged by a select few guys. So I'm pretty confident those select few guys are going to be the guys at the end of this thing. So that sort of gave me good feelers for who is willing to work out here and get something done. So I sort of am just pedaling tempo here. I'm dropping back, and you can see I get kind of half countered here. And so I'm just going to slot in right here, and it's almost kind of a good thing because I can get back in on this counter, and I realize we have a gap on the field again, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe this is a selection already, and you know, we're less than 10 minutes into this race. So I think this actually does blow a few guys off the back, and so you can hear me yell there, we have a gap go, and then boom, we fall into rotation, and so this is actually pretty promising. So this Canyon rider on the front, I think he might be a Cat 5. Rich is saying, hey, let's rotate. I'm like, all right, I'm with it. So I come through, pull at 400 watts, keeping it smooth. And then, as you can see, we've fallen into rotation here, which is nice. And so I go ahead and I pull off. Boom, rider comes underneath. That's fine. And then I'm supposed to be falling back on his wheel. Rich is supposed to be coming through underneath for him. But he's shaking his head at me here. Watch, he looks back at me, he shakes his head. And we talked about it after the race. I think that he thought that I didn't pull through or something. But yeah, I mean, I was dropping back to the back of this pack, man. I took my pull. The next rider came through. I was like, all right, I'm not slotting back in second wheel. No chance. So I was, you know, I kind of made Rich close a little bit of a gap there, I guess. But Yeah, I don't know what happened really, but anyway, so we are in rotation. We've got a group of, I think, 1, 2, we've got like 5 or 6 guys here. Well, 6 if you include me, and I think this is actually a pretty good rotation. The field is chasing, and so we're moving along. We're still rotating. I'm thinking, all right, this might last, but then it looks like we get a little bit unorganized here. We don't keep the same rotation, so I try and come through and get back in rotation, but then I actually take a glance back, and you can hear me drop the F-bomb there. I realize that we're caught. So the field did patch it up, but I look back and the field is much smaller than it originally was. So anyway, we're arguing. Like I said, we talked it out after we figured it out. Rich is a good dude. He rode super strong in this, as you'll see a little bit later. But yeah, so I slot back in here, and then those 2 riders go up the road, and I'm like, all right, that's fine with me, because I'm thinking that, you know, I'm just going to jump across and bridge to this. I even said don't chase it to, you know, the couple riders that are on the front here, because I hopefully think that, you know, a couple of us are strong enough to bridge to that later on. And so I'm kind of okay with them getting a little bit of a gap here, but lo and behold, nobody really wants to pull, so it's kind of working out exactly as I was hoping. And so I'm just going to sit in, see if that has legs, see if it can get up the road a little bit, and then do my bridge effort. But right on cue, this rider in front of me on the pink bike, he just starts drilling, and so it looks like he's pretty willing to chase it back, and I'm just going to sit on his wheel, take that free ride. No sense in me doing any of this work, and as you can see, the gaps come down considerably already, so I don't think they're going to stay out there, and, you know, if they manage to hang out there for quite a while, then yeah, I'll jump across a bridge, but until then, not worth it. But spoiler alert gets brought back here in just a second, and let's go ahead and jump forward to the next flurry of attacks. In the meantime, I do want to just make sort of a point here, like, I am not gonna do unnecessary work. So anytime I'm on the front of this race, unless I'm attacking and trying to force the selection even further, which I want to do later in this race, I'm really not worried about letting these riders roll. I mean, they're not attacking, they're not going hard. Do I think they're gonna solo it? Not necessarily. If they do look dangerous, then I will jump to it, of course. But like, I mean, I'm not gonna go crazy here. I'm just pedaling like 100-something watts, took a drink of my bottle, and now I'm like going all the way across the road. I flick my elbow. I'm like, hey, somebody come through, because I'm not closing this gap down. So I do that like the whole race, man. Like, I'm not gonna do any work that is unnecessary. If I do any work here and I put down the watts, they're gonna be for a reason. So either I'm trying to shell people out the back with a really, really hard pull in the front, or I'm attacking, bridging a gap that only I want to come across, etc. I'm not really worried about the back end of this field that we had already sort of shelled catching back on. If they did catch back on, then they were going to be doing a ton of work to get back on this group, and by the time they got here, you know they'd be dead. So anyway, I'm not super concerned about doing work on the front and keeping this super fast or anything like that, because I want to keep it surgy and just attack over the top of everybody the whole race. Alright, once again, another example. This is just, I'm going to come wide here. He's looking back. I think they want me to pull through, but like I said, I am not going to do the work. If anything, though, I know that being on the front and not doing work really opens me up to an attack. So I'm looking over my shoulder, like, just waiting for somebody to come across me at speed, and of course I'll respond. So you know, I want to be able to preempt anything with power, and so you can see in my shadow, I'm just checking over my shoulder, checking over my shoulder, checking over my shoulder, but nobody follows. So I'm just like sitting here, man. I'm like, all right. And I mean, even at this point, I come all the way across the road, and this is actually a key point here that I want to talk about. You know, in my head, the best idea is to come all the way to the gutter like that out of the corner, or all the way to one side of the road. That way, if a counter does come or somebody does attack me while I'm on the front, then I can see them coming, because I can focus on the other side of the road. So I don't have to have my head on a swivel looking both directions. I can look just one direction and see what's going on. So that was what I was doing there. I was coming as wide as I possibly could. That way I was just looking and watching and seeing what's going on my right side. Now, nobody's countering really. Everybody's just kind of covering and then patching this gap up. So for the time being, nothing crazy is happening here. All right, jumping ahead, the young guns in this race, the Bros Ride Bikes boys. they were actually, you know, they were working on animating the race themselves. Shout out to them, man. They rode really strong the whole race, and they rode pretty smart. You know, they were on the right wheels when we were making the selection, and you know, they made really the final selection here. Besides what comes later, but man, with great risk. You know, just like anybody else that's off the front like that, when we catch you, especially at speed, I'm gonna counterattack. So I came across them super hard there, and I'm definitely gonna make it really, really hard to attach back on the back of this thing. Even if I don't keep drilling it, I just want to make sure that anybody that's attacking, I come across it with speed. Now, one thing I noticed though is that we did still have one rider up the road, so I went ahead and called that out to the rest of the guys that came with me. So we need to make sure that we did go ahead and try and chase that thing down. So, you know, as long as he doesn't stay out there and get too big of a gap, I'm not worried about him soloing. But this rider's pretty strong. I saw him at the Tour de Murrieta in the circuit, I believe. And I think he nicked me at the line or something. I took 8th in that race overall out of like 80. And then I think he ended up with the 7th slot. So I know this rider's pretty strong. I know he can stay out there for at least quite a while. But as long as we keep him within sight, I'm not super worried about it. So we do have a bit of a chase effort going here. That's a good thing. But yeah, fast forward to when we finally get him back. But shout out to him, man. He was riding real strong, and this one actually worried a couple of us. We were like, he might stay out there. But pretty soon we get him within striking distance, and then we just keep him dangling. All right, a little more animation here. About a half a lap later, and I come underneath, and dude, I just drill it. I'm like, all right, maybe it's time to bridge, man. So, you know, thinking this rider off the front is strong. He wants to work. He's getting more and more of a gap. So the strong will survive and come with me. Those who don't want to come with me, well, they can hang in the pack and roll the dice. But, you know, I want to bring some guys with me here and see if we could get something in the works to bridge across to this rider. And it looks like we actually do force a little bit of a gap here. So I'm like, you know what? Let's double down on it and give it the juice. So as you can see, I'm putting in a pretty big pull, doing like 400 watts. And I look back and I'm trying to gauge what's going on behind me. And then I realize that there's quite a few individuals still back there, but we have shelled a couple more riders. So now we're down to like, shoot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 of us. And smart move. I think this is pretty sure this is Jack behind me.
This is it if we stick it.
And yeah, I called it out there. I was like, this is it if we stick it. This will be the final selection pretty much, just because I know that everybody in this is willing to do the work. But yeah, so here we go. I wish we would have fallen into rotation a little bit sooner, but we had a huge gap. So that attack that I put in, and then, you know, making sure I stayed on the gas a little bit longer, really worked. And it also did a ton to close the gap on the rider that's still up the road, who's just rounding the corner now. And we were getting a little worried, like I said, that he was potentially going to stay out there. So now people are getting a little more animated, wanting to work. All right, jumping a little bit further ahead, I cut out a pretty big chunk of the race, so I'm sort of just kind of hanging back here, and the selection is still a little too big, man. Like, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
What are you doing?
I don't know. There's still like 10, 11 riders, I think, attached to this thing. And so it gets a little silly here, and everybody's kind of fanning out. I don't really want to work. Nobody really wants to work. I don't really want to close this gap. So it's real slow, real laid back. I'm sitting pretty far back, so I'm actually getting some draft and just chilling out. But it gets real interesting here in a second after we round this corner. So as you can see, we did bring that rider that was off the front. He's on the front right now. And everybody sits up. Nobody wants to pull through. And so I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm going to go wide. But listen to this.
Give it a little gas, give it a little gas.
And so I know who I want with me. And so I told them, man, I was like, all right, give it gas, give it gas, give it gas. And, man, Jack on my wheel again, man. This kid was just, he knew where to be. So he was able to follow that attack perfectly. And so, boom, here we go again. We're moving. And this time I'm not messing around. I really want to make a final selection here. So as you can see, I ramped it up, put us at 30 mile an hour, and then now we're going into the headwind section, and we're still doing 27. So I'm I'm actually putting in a pretty big dig here. And the problem is I get too much of a gap. Nobody stays on, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be out here solo, especially not with like, you know, 2 or 3 laps to go. So I sort of back off the power right there. I just keep it steady until they're able to patch it up, and pretty much dwindles it down to what I think actually is finally the last group. So anyway, let's go ahead and just jump ahead to the last lap here, because there's a couple moves I want to touch on that I actually ended up having to make that I think sort of resulted in the way that this ride actually shakes out. Okay, so we're just inside 2 to go, and you can see there's a gap opening off the front here again, and these are actually 3 of the strongest riders in the race, in my opinion. I'm not going to do the work to drag this back, but I will bridge across to it. So here I go. I put in a pretty good attack there. I just want to make sure that I get separation, do the watts, come across, patch it up, and then fall in line on the back of this thing, and I'm hoping that it's just going to be us 4 for the final duration of the race. But as you can see, you know, we're kind of sitting up here and slowing it down, so that's actually going to allow a couple more riders to latch up back onto the back of this. But now we're down to just 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we're back to 6 riders total. So yeah, it's basically us 6 riders for the rest of this shindig, because we're just about to be coming into 1 to go. All right. Final 2 corners. This is the big moments right here. This is the wheel I want to be on. I am 100% intentional with being here, and so this finish gets really interesting. I'm waiting for the rider in front of me to jump. I know he's gonna, and boom, there he goes. So I launched 2, but the rider on the left hears that Rich went, and so he gets to carry all his speed, full gas through there. I have to brake because this rider closes the door on me, and I was on the inside line. He had bars. I don't know if you could really see it. I launched my sprint, but man, I had done a lot of work, so I don't have the juice. Rich clears us with just a ton of separation. That rider nabs second. Great work on both of their part, carrying their speed through the corner. Like I said, I had to just get I had to let off the gas just a little bit, and that allowed him to get the gap he needed to lock up second. But hey man, I'm super stoked. I took 3rd. First podium. Although it was a small field, I did a ton of work to make it happen. And shout out to the rest of these boys, because, you know, they did a ton of work to make it happen as well. So glad we all made it there together, and I'm looking forward to the next one. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button for me, and stick around, watch some more races. Thanks, and see you guys soon.